why women shouldn't vote. Yes, okay. A lot of people think I'm insane because I don't think women should vote. Everybody thinks I'm crazy for this opinion. If anything, this is probably my most extreme opinion. And I would like to tell you how I came to this conclusion. So what happened was I wanted to know why men were so angry about women. Why are there all these complaints about women? And when I started researching the stuff, it was pretty easy to figure out why. 90% of women have been on birth control. 1 out of 3 women has an STD. The average body count is over 5, so your average wife has slept with over 5 people. 95% of women are not virgins on their wedding days. So I understand the complaint.
Hello everyone, once again from the Tory dystopia of the United Kingdom, and today we are talking about conservative women, because recently they've been saying, well, why are so many conservative guys so sexist to us? And there was an article which we're going to read through from 2017, basically outlining the same problem with the alt-right back in the day. Like, alt-right women would say, well, why are these guys so sexist to us? And to people on the left, it's really not surprising. Conservatives also hate women. But I guess for like white, straight conservative women, they're like, well, we hate the LGBT community as well. We hate minorities too. So surely conservative men, we can agree on that. And yeah, they do agree on that. But then they become so shocked that the conservative men say, oh yeah, also we don't think women should have the right to vote. Also, we're like completely against women's equality. And as American conservatism has transitioned into this like straight out fascism, to me it's amazing they're even surprised, because conservatism already promotes patriarchy and promotes a very rigid set of gender roles. And yes, because of like liberalism and liberal feminism, and even like in the past, like Republican feminism, too, to some extent, in like the late 1800s, you do have some conservatives who accept that, yes, women should be paid equal, women should have the right to vote, there shouldn't be maybe barriers to employment because of their gender. And it's kind of like the LGBT stuff as well. Like, remember Trump was like posing with like a rainbow flag, right? And it's like now they don't have to pretend anymore. The same way they don't pretend with LGBT people anymore, but they accept them. They'll just flat out say, yeah, I think you're all degenerates. I think you're all groomers. And now a lot of them are also saying to women, I don't think you're equal. I don't think you should have the right to vote. And I wish this was more of a wake-up call for conservative women, because there are far more conservative women than there are conservative, obviously, trans people as a percentage, or just generally LGBT people. And I guess for white, straight conservative women, they are low down the list of conservative priorities. But what they should realize as they make their way through different groups, as they attack different communities, they will start attacking women more. We saw this with Steven Crowder and a lot of people attacking no-fault divorce recently. Basically a woman's right to divorce her husband for whatever reason she wants. And they were absolutely going mad about that. And now we have a lot of conservative men basically just attacking women and basically saying any women who want equality are also responsible for like trans rights activists and stuff. It's pretty wild to see. So we're going to be talking about people like Sydney Watson, Matt Walsh, and what's also ironic is a lot of gender critical feminists who do view themselves as feminists, let's remember, they don't view themselves as fascists or conservatives. Now Matt Walsh is at war with them as well, saying that their version of feminism has also led to a rise in trans people existing and stuff. So it's very interesting to see. And like I said, I wish it was more of a reflective moment for conservative women, or gender critical feminists, as they like to call themselves, because they should realize, yeah, if you help the far right in America get into power, you're attacking your own rights as well. Funny as well, with some of the women we'll be talking about, basically on every issue they agree with these men, apart from one, and it's about themselves. And if that isn't conservatism in a nutshell, I don't know what is. It's all about the preservation of your lifestyle and yourself, but when the conservatives come for you as well, then you start crying about it, despite attacking every single marginalised community and making their lives worse. So all of that coming up for you today. Before we go any further, please like the video, follow me on social media at the Kavernacle on Twitter, Threads, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Also consider becoming a patron. I'm trying to build up as many $1 to $3 patrons as possible. Benefits include access to old exclusive content, access to my Nintendo Switch friend code, and also if you sign up, DM me and I will send you an invite to the private patrons Discord server as well. And also check out my subreddit, and check out my second channel. The links to everything down in the description. So obviously, as someone who's followed politics since my mid-teenage years, especially American politics, there used to be a distinction between the far right and general American Republicans, right? I would say it's kind of like looking at Mitt Romney versus Donald Trump. Mitt Romney's a pretty terrible guy, right? But he is firmly in line with conventional, I guess, the American establishment. Also just a bit more of a moderate Republican, as well as moderate as you can be in that era. But also now with Trumpism rising, basically all Republicans are far-right, alt-right. And I always get amazed that anyone even debates me on that now, right? What is the difference between a general Republican and a fascist? The only small difference between the actual alt-right and mainstream conservatism is whether or not they support Israel. And in mainstream conservatism, they might support Israel as an extension of white supremacy, Western chauvinism, and anti-Islam. Or if they're evangelical Christians, they might love Israel because they're Christian Zionists, believing it's the key to Armageddon, where most Jewish people will die if they don't convert to Christianity. So you have that lovely combination. But then for some on the alt-right, because they don't like Jewish people, they hate Israel. But at that point, that's basically the only difference between them. So there was an article that came out in 2017, and of course it's still relevant, but it's even more relevant because what used to be perceived as the far-right fringe or the alt-right is now the mainstream of conservative politics in 2023. So Rachel Leah wrote an article for Salon. Alt-right women are upset that alt-right men are treating them terribly. There's trouble brewing in the MAGA world as prominent women in the alt-right are upset that the nationalists are being misogynistic towards them. Women in the alt-right are constantly harassed by low-level anonymous trolls trying to put us in our place, self-described ethno-nationalist Tara McCarthy wrote on Twitter Sunday, in a moment of revelation that was well known to basically anyone else, men in the alt-right are going to have to decide whether they will continue to passively, actively endorse this behavior or speak out against it. That sounds like feminism. If you want more women speaking publicly about ethno-nationalism, I suggest you choose the latter. Guys, I'm not saying I can't take any trolling or harassment on the internet. Obviously, I can. I've probably had more of it than most of you will see in a lifetime, and I'm still here, not going anywhere. I'm not stating the above solely for my own personal benefit. The problem I'm stating here is not that there are trolls on the internet, but people who proclaim to be on our side are trying to tear down women in our in-group. If you can't see why this is dysfunctional, I can't help you. Another self-described conservative woman who has also had problem with her movement's underlying culture, in a video titled Why I'm Not Married, Lauren Southern responded to the backlash she received for pushing traditional family values and trying to tear down feminism while not turning into a baby-making machine herself. I'm not trying to sell the idea that myself, as a 22-year-old, needs to be married right now for the sake of traditionalism and not being a degenerate, Southern said in a YouTube video. What is also just completely shocking to me is the utter lack of understanding of nuance. Southern said that women should be able to choose their own life path and not be attacked for it, which sounds like what women have been shouting for decades now. While Tara McCarthy would like to see racism without the sexism in the white supremacist movement, and Southern would appreciate if anti-feminist women were given the ability to choose for themselves what kind of life they want to lead, it's worth wondering if these women are liberal. After all, what kind of alt-right darling wants to promote some sort of intersectionalism? So again, an evergreen article because now we have women in the far-right conservative movement complaining about this again. Why is this ultra-masculine fascist ideology and its followers treating me badly? And the thing is, as someone who doesn't believe in free will so much, I of course feel bad for women who grew up in that environment and women who are brainwashed by their society into thinking this way. What I have less sympathy for is media personality grifters who experience this very horrible hatred from men and then still go about their day making their lives worse for everyone else and still promoting this ideology at the end of the day. Calling out men in your movement, if you're alt-right like Lauren Southern or if you're, far-right like most American conservative women media personalities, yeah, okay, you don't like it personally when it affects you. Are you going to leave the right? Are you going to start speaking against how the general conservative messaging, even when it's not necessarily to do with women, is anti-woman as well? I seriously doubt it. So in that respect, it's harder to have as much sympathy. A lot of them, like Lauren Southern, are just extremely racist and want to have their cake and eat it too, like those two people in the article. I want my ethno-state. I also want gender equality in my ethno-state. Those things aren't compatible. But now let's go on to the recent drama. So Sydney Watson is an Australian conservative who you might have seen. I remember her on The Blaze. So ex-Blaze employee sues over claims that ex-host Elijah Schaffer's sexist drunken behaviour got her fired. And if you don't know who Elijah Schaffer is, he was recently running polls on Twitter about if Jews actually control the world. Literally, this guy is some absolutely unhinged fascist. So let's get into this article before looking at some of Sydney's tweets recently. So another former employee of The Blaze, the network founded by Glenn Beck, has come forward with claims about one of its most popular ex-hosts, Elijah Schaffer. Sydney Watson says Schaffer openly criticised and berated her, using misogynistic and sexist language and routinely booking guests to repeat the behaviour. The Conservative commentator filed her lawsuit in early February in federal court against The Blaze. Watson alleges that after months of complaining to the network's operators about Schaffer's behaviour, they eventually fired her. She responded with a lawsuit seeking all remedies for sex and religious discrimination and wrongful termination under state and federal statutes, according to the court records. Watson is the second former host from The Blaze to come forward with accusations of inappropriate sexual behaviour against Schaffer. Last year, ex-host Sarah Gonzalez told the company that Schaffer groped her without consent during the premiere of a documentary in August, and the company conducted an investigation into the matter that ended with Schaffer's termination. Watson, however, says in her lawsuit that the company knew of Schaffer's inappropriate behaviour towards her but did not take appropriate actions to stop it. 3 months into Watson's tenure at The Blaze, Schaffer became increasingly aggressive and veered towards outright misogyny on their show. According to the suit, Schaffer booked Nick Fuentes as a guest, and Schaffer expressed misogynistic views. Watson says this interview started a trend of booking similar guests with hateful views towards women, so that Schaffer could put down Watson and other female staff on air. Schaffer and several guests would also ridicule Watson's atheism, according to the lawsuit. Last July, The Blaze fired Watson after another complaint she made about Schaffer through her attorneys. The company announced her departure in September. Obviously, a lot of women can relate to stories like that in the workplace, and it's terrible. It is so common. But again, if this person was indoctrinated in conservatism from a young age, started working at some conservative media outlet, then realised the ideology she was pushing inherently hates women and hates atheism as well, which she's found out through working at The Blaze, and then changed, I'd have more sympathy for that political evolution. But the problem being, she's experienced like the face of basically American conservatism in this Schaffer guy, experienced terrible like work conditions because of his own views towards women and all this harassment. And then she starts her own YouTube channel and just does the same thing. Promotes the exact same ideology he was promoting. I guess he promotes it in a far more uglier way because he cozies up to the actual alt-right like Nick Fuentes, like the people who hate Israel and Jewish people. But at the same time, pretty much everything else they don't have many political differences on. So she's taken that experience, obviously sued this company she worked at, and it sounds like she has like a very credible case as well. But at the same time, she's ended working for them and basically just does the same thing. And that's what makes this even more ironic. All these women getting treated like absolute garbage by far-right conservative men, and then acted surprised when they do it again. So she wrote this on Twitter the other day. Getting real tired of the anti-female rhetoric being espoused by some people, groups in the right wing. Everything you dislike about feminists and the way many portray men is exactly what you're becoming yourselves, but with respect to women, cease. But they're not going to stop. Why would they stop? This is core to their ideology. All this backlash against trans people, which Sydney happily engages in, by the way, and happily inflames, this is to do with gender norms, right? And the thing is, a lot of these people convince themselves it's not. But why a lot of conservative men in particular hate transgender people and basically the gender norms being eroded, which is a good thing because they're obviously stupid and tied up in patriarchy, but they think the backlash towards trans people isn't part of this. They feel like women should be a certain way because of patriarchy and because of their views on gender, and that means they do not see you as equal. And actually part of them hating trans people, and obviously it's more directed at trans women, part of it is they feel like men have chosen to be lesser. They've chosen to be female. And they hate trans women for multiple of reasons, because, you know, they view them as degenerates, groomers, all that stuff. But also just the choice of being female is seen in their worldview as an extremely negative thing. Masculine is the best. Everyone should want to be more masculine. Women should live to serve masculinity. Women should live to serve men. And if men, in their view, are choosing to become women, they hate that. And they hate what they see as a threat to gender norms. And in that, most transphobes absolutely hate women as well. So not surprising, but then you get loads of these people, absolutely crazy far-right conservatives, all agreeing. So Melanie Mack, who's just the worst, I'm with you on this. Other verified ticks, girl, tell me about it. My other observation is they are unironically proving that feminists are right with their spewing and probably creating more feminists in the process. They are a net negative for the right wing and for society in general with their ideas. You're almost getting it. You're almost getting it. It creates more feminists because they see what conservatism is all about. It's anti-women. It's not anti-feminist. That's a dog whistle they've always used. The same thing with them saying they're anti, I don't know, indoctrinating children in gender ideology. They don't give a shit about the children. They just use it to attack trans people and the LGBT community. The same way when they say they are anti-feminist. They don't care what feminism is about beyond the vague notion it's a challenge to the patriarchy. They just use it to make people hate women. And even in the comments, you get this backlash. Anti-female, anti-feminist, do you have examples? Because the narrative of respect has just meant blindly believe, follow and grovel. I'm curious to what you see as anti-female. Sorry, men aren't listening anymore. Then you have another person agreeing, I've been feeling it too. I don't think the grand majority of conservatives right-wingers think that way, they do, but a worrying amount of the vocal ones clearly do. I feel so trapped in the middle. I greatly dislike feminism, absolutely. But when there are so many lengthy threads here on how women's rights should be revoked, how women don't belong in the workplace, and mocking women who are victims of violence by saying you voted for it, I feel abandoned and even hated by both sides. Is this how libertarians feel? I always find this amazing, like, people who think they're politically homeless. So, Samira Khan, one of the biggest pick-me's out there, probably even worse than Sean Head, says, do you think that misogyny is a bigger problem in society than misandry? One is being pushed by the globalists, and another is a response to that from the grassroots. By no means are they equivalent. Get a clue. So right-wing infighting, Sydney quote tweeting this, both are equally bad. The fact that people like you try to pit the sexes against each other disgusts me. Plenty of women, me included, actively disdain and push back against anti-male rhetoric. Sexism towards women isn't the solution. More backlash, getting real tired of you morphing into a radical feminist. Same amount of hate towards men. We need to stop kidding ourselves. There's a clear gender war happening right now. Good. You all gave us feminism, which has been an absolute destruction of values and meaning. Now it's time for a rebound and hopefully more masculine men who aren't cucked by the pro-female nostalgic types. You're still weakening men with this soft, emotional rhetoric. One more. I spoke up very respectfully on a popular account. The men were very disrespectful, as you said, proving the feminists right. Even more disappointing were the women co-signing with them. If they are proving the feminists right, then maybe the feminists are right, that conservatives hate women. If so many of you are saying, all I now see is conservatives saying they hate women, want to take away our rights, want to take away our right to vote and stuff, yeah, then maybe the feminists were right. Maybe the feminists saying the attack on Roe versus Wade was an attack on women's rights generally, regardless of what you think of the actual issue, right? Maybe listen to them, because conservatives always do this. They take an issue, but it's actually a smokescreen to attack women's rights in general, like, for example, no-fault divorce, which they want to end as well, because it's like the Handmaid's Tale. That's what they want women as. Most conservative men want that, and if they say different, they're lying to you, especially North American conservative men. Maybe Australian conservatism, like Sydney Watson, or British conservatism, has a more gender equal view of things, or a gender critical feminist view of things. Maybe they don't outright say it as much in I don't know, Britain and Australia. But also, even in these countries, lots of them still think it, even if they aren't as fervent as the US. Now, on that note, you guys would have seen this person, Pearl Davis, and she's basically being the queen of the pick-me's, basically saying all this stuff about how women are terrible, as a woman herself. And she tweets stuff like this, right? It's becoming parody at this point. Massive grift, of course. So she writes, I love sexism. No, I do not need therapy, you dumb women. I see what is in front of me. Women make dumb choices. Let men make choices, not us. make conservatives sexist again. Now all the conservatives are arguing that we need to cater to young, idiot liberal women's feelings, the audacity, stop trying to please women, we were never happy. And then just an article, if you guys don't know who she is, you probably do at this point. As Andrew Tate languishes in jail, a new celebrity anti-feminist creator is filling the gap. Unlike him, she's a woman. Hannah Pearl Davis, known as just Pearl, is booming in popularity with a brand of anti-feminist content that lands differently since she is a woman herself. Davis, who is 26, saw her YouTube audience grow 50% in 3 months since Tate was detained. Per her analytics, her subscribers jumped from 800k to 1.3 million. Her podcast, The Pre-Game, sees Davis debate with and criticize feminists, praise Andrew Tate's teachings, and present herself as a rare champion for the male point of view. Unlike Tate, Davis does not consider herself a misogynist, telling Insider that she doesn't hate women. Breakout clips include her arguing that it's a woman's fault if her partner cheats, and men should be able to hit women back, and women don't deserve a man who makes 6 figures if they're obese. A lot of you guys are shitty wives, Davis said in a recent video. You don't cook for your man, you belittle him, you nag on him all the time, you don't treat him like a man. Are Western women, typically known as good wives, are they sought after all over the world, or are men getting their passports and going elsewhere? So this Pearl person has been making videos about how women shouldn't even have the right to vote and stuff. And it's just like an obvious grift at this point, in my opinion, like the extremity of her opinions. Like, sure, do I believe she's probably anti-feminist, internalized misogyny, all that stuff? Yeah, of course I do. But just tweeting stuff like, I love sexism and things like that, and considering how popular she's become, it's just a grift, right? She's taken her anti-feminist, probably anti-woman views and just dialed them up because Andrew Tate has become so extreme as well. So she's looking to be the main pick-me in the manosphere ecosystem to basically for them to point to, look, even some women are saying, I don't know, women are trash or whatever. And I think that's who Sydney Watson was kind of talking about, because a lot of conservative men have promoted Pearl as well. Now, one more person we're going to talk about, and it's because he so obviously hates women. I know this guy jokingly refers to himself as a theocratic fascist, but I was thinking to myself the other day, everything I've ever heard this guy say is completely compatible with like the most extreme European fascism. Apart from mainly we don't know his views on some minority group, should we say. That's pretty much the only difference at this point. But there was a video going around of the Daily Wire crew talking about the chores they'd rather do, and basically all of them saying they don't do them. And if they had to do them, maybe they'd do the cooking, but they never do either.
It's kind of a trick question because I hate them both equally. But I guess I would say I would rather do the dishes, but I'd prefer if she just did both of them.
Wrong answer.
Michael, to you.
Dishes, it's no question. I'm not sure in our entire marriage if I've ever done a full load of laundry, so I think I have that one.
I like it. All right, Drew?
Well, this is a trick question because I have not done anything around the house for 40 years. I've been a completely useless, but it's clear that if I had to choose, it would have to be dishes because she was just out of town for a month and I actually called her up and said, how do you do laundry? So I think dishes is the only thing I know how to do.
I think it says so much, right? And I made videos about conservative dating apps. Like, dating conservative men just means you're going to be treated like shit automatically. Like, I'm not saying conservative men have a monopoly on treating women terribly. Loads of left-wing men, even left-wing YouTubers, have also said terrible things about women. So that's something to remember as well. But if your default is, yeah, women are unequal, patriarchy is awesome, women should be mothers, and basically just do all my chores for me, I don't think you're going to have a great relationship. Matt Walsh is someone who's also turning off conservative women in multiple ways. Now, there was a TikTok going round of a woman talking about how she was assaulted in public. And Matt Walsh quote tweets it saying, I have zero sympathy for liberals who actively vote against their own well-being. And lots of people were mad at him for this, a lot of conservative women. Someone saying, Maggie here, why are women moving left? Perhaps it's the complete lack of charity and understanding offered by our thought leaders. Matt Walsh is responding to a woman who is speaking publicly about feeling unsafe in San Francisco. Berating someone makes them put up defenses. That's what people do when they feel like they're being attacked. Keep deploying this strategy and you'll continue losing. But then Pearl sweeps in saying, women blah blah blah, be nicer to use when we are idiots. No, we ask to be equal, so be equal, stop voting and having a say. So that is where conservatives are at right now. You have one big female creator saying that, yeah, women deserve terrible treatment if you vote for a certain political party. And you have Matt Walsh saying that women who are assaulted in public don't deserve any sympathy if they have voted for Democrat or something, right? That is what conservative women are selling you, being treated like this by men. Can you imagine how Matt Walsh treats his wife, by the way. Anyway, so let's go further with Matt Walsh saying some other stuff. Feminism set the stage for trans activists by insisting for years that there are no significant or inherent differences between men and women apart from anatomy. They are the ones who came up with the idea that most differences between the sexes were social constructs. I mean, not inherently wrong, but it's funny the direction this takes. Now the gender-critical feminists want to pretend to be leaders in the fight against trans ideology, all while refusing to admit that it's a direct descendant of their own ideology. And also going on to say recently as well, it's a good time to remember that feminism has killed far more people than the atom bomb. It's perhaps the most destructive force in human history. Trans ideology, its offshoot, is competing for the title, like absolutely unhinged. But he's been annoying the gender-critical feminists for a long time because, yeah, feminism and trans activism should go hand in hand. And even with liberal feminism in the United States, you do see this, where liberal feminism in the UK is traditionally more gender critical. So it can be compatible. And yes, if you are breaking down the notion that there are inherent differences or a superiority with men compared to women, then of course you're breaking down gender roles which have been forced on us by patriarchy. He's not inherently wrong to say this, but it is funny. He's criticizing people who consider him allies, because if you guys remember, he tweeted this last year. I respect the courage you've shown on the issue, J.K. Rowling, but many people have simply caved to the demands of trans activists and completely surrendered truth and reality to them. The cowards are also villains in this story. They need to be held accountable. And she says, and your film did a good job exposing the incoherence of gender identity theory and some of the harms it's done. Many institutions I used to admire have uncritically embraced this dogma, but I reserve my ire for them rather than shouting coward at individual women. So again, J.K. Rowling is saying nice things about fascists. Oh, surprise, surprise, he doesn't actually like gender-critical feminists either. More recently saying, so-called gender-critical feminists like Helen Joyce fail to understand how feminism itself set the stage for trans ideology. The trans mania never would have taken hold of our society without feminists setting the stage for it. So yeah, Matt Walsh going off on conservative or liberal gender-critical feminist women, basically saying, yeah, we can agree we don't like trans people. I don't like trans people because of my views on patriarchy and how I actually hate women. And I think the current gender roles enforced by patriarchy are not only good, I want to enforce a more extreme version of that, where women are viewed as lesser than they currently are. And shocking for these gender-critical feminists, he actually hates me too. Because yes, white, straight, conservative men view everyone as lesser than them. And just because you're not in their crosshairs right now, you will be. And often when they're attacking things like trans ideology or gender ideology, they're also attacking women as well as part of that. And you're too dumb to see it. You will rabidly attack trans people as well, the LGBT community. You will give these guys a pass. You will push the same talking points as them. Even if you've experienced gross misogyny from them personally, you will still do this and then turn around shocked later saying, why do all these conservative men hate women? Funny, because it shows you a lot of conservative women genuinely believe there's a place for a conservative world where women are seen as equal, because a lot of the grifters in the American media sphere, like Candace Owens, Dave Rubin, Blair White, I guess they don't turn around and complain like, oh my God, conservatives hate black women, conservatives hate gay men, conservatives actually hate trans people, right? They don't do that because they seemingly know they do. They're just grifting as these pick-me's, right? They're just grifting to make money. But then you have people like Sydney Watson who probably genuinely believes it, and then they're like, oh my God, I'm so shocked. They actually hate me too. I hate trans people, I hate immigrants, I hate ethnic minorities, just like those good old conservative men. But I didn't realize they would view me in that category as well. I didn't realize The Handmaid's Tale is basically the blueprint for a lot of what these conservative men want in society. And it's just sad that there are so many women who've been brainwashed into thinking that promoting pro-patriarchy conservatism is somehow beneficial to them and won't strip away their own rights, which were won for them by feminism in the first place. So they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want to kick away the ladder after they've gotten their relative equality, but then get shocked when they help attack others' equality, that conservative men will come for them eventually, right? Conservative men in the public sphere stayed relatively quiet on these things for a while, right? Because they didn't think it was politically viable. And as we've seen with Ohio recently, maybe it isn't politically viable. That doesn't change the political culture where these conservative men now feel emboldened to say all this terrible stuff about minorities, which they have kept bottled up for a long time. And Donald Trump was basically the pass they needed. Him coming around in 2015, his presidency, and what's happened afterwards, it's basically like, now you can say it all. Like, you've been hiding how much you hate gay people, now just say it. Call them degenerates and groomers like you did in the 1980s and 90s. You don't have to hide anymore. Say you hate women again, like it's the 1960s and 70s. You can just say that. Because now we can say what we want, we can show our true face, because we're not scared of the repercussions. So yes, hopefully more women realise there isn't any path to any semblance of equality, or even maintaining the current status quo of relative equality, of some semblance of equality under patriarchy. But yeah, as more people like Matt Walsh say these terrible things about women, hopefully more women realise conservatism is just going to attack you eventually, even if you think it's not in the short term. Anyway, that is it for the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And if you made it this far, thank you for watching.